I think you can start counting.
Somewhere, I think I have it.
Yeah, we're good. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Douglas Kellner, co-chair of the commissioners. I'd ask the other commissioners to introduce themselves.
Jim Walsh, Gregory Peterson,
Andy Spennel.
And would the staff identify themselves, please?
Brennan,
Bill McCann,
Cheryl Cover.
Joe Burns.
Tom Connolly.
Kimberly Galvin.
Todd Valentine.
All right, I see we have two guests.
Amy Alla, League of Women Voters.
Welcome to everyone. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of May 22nd. We have the minutes for the regular meeting, and we also have minutes for the executive session, and each of them was revised from the initial draft that was circulated, right?
yes. Move for the approval.
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are adopted. We'll have the unit update reports. We'll start with the co-executive directors, Bob Brehm and Todd Valentine.
Well, it's certainly been a busy time since our last meeting. I think certainly for the people watching our webcast, we'll see that there's not a full group of people here. We've had a number of people leave us for other job opportunities or retirement. Also, so people aren't worried, Anna is not in the room today because it is also petition filing period, so she is out keeping us afloat with a number of other staff members because it is very busy doing that this week. We've had some information. As you know, we've talked about the statutory changes in the budget that were adopted back in March.
Everybody reaches.
And we had submitted a staffing plan to the executive chamber as to how to deal with things. That was approved. We learned a week ago Friday. So we have been busy, we've been working towards that plan for some months, but now that the plan is actually approved, we are proceeding to, deal with the structural issues in the office. We'll have to, update job specs, et cetera, but basically, for the people to understand, the plan was to take what was left in campaign finance enforcement since they created an independent enforcement counsel's unit. Was the compliance unit and combine it with the counsel's unit. So we've all been multitasking anyway on a number of projects, but now we're moving full steam ahead with that planning, submitting and recruiting the people to fill those jobs. So consolidating the office, we have approval now to fill 6 auditor positions in a phase 1 and 4 compliance reviewers in a phase 2 that we will have to have further discussions, but when we get to phase 2, so I don't want to make it sound like it's an automatic approval, but at least that was the plan we submitted, and that's what we're working towards. Also, I know these touch on a number of different units, but we did get the decision in the Hispanic leadership that came down. We've been chatting, for having outside counsel, and a lot of people think that outside counsel helps us with that. It's taken a lot of people, a lot of in-house people, as well as yourself, because we've had to reach out to you since you've been sued, not the board, on that case. So that's still an issue that is probably something we'll have to discuss in an executive session, maybe. But Dave Loomis is not here. That's an important position. Dave took a position that was an advancement for him. We're both sad and happy for him. Happy for him, sad for us, because I think he's been a great help to the agency. We looked at a lot of people to recruit him, and he was a very helpful person to us in so short a period of time. But he left the state board to go work for the State Office of Information Technology and in a different cluster. So we wish him well. He has a transition team with us. We are actively canvassing the list for his replacement, and we'll be doing interviews. Dave will help us to do that, and he's also helping to marshal the projects in addition to his new work during that transition period.
Is someone temporarily replacing him, and if so, whom?
We've had that conversation with the person who heads up our general government cluster, and they had identified a person to serve as a project manager to fill that gap. That person has since applied for some other state job, so they are still trying to find us that interim help. Right now, we're working with our in-house staff and with Dave and with Adam, who is the general government cluster. So yes, there's a lot going on, but so far we're managing. We're not at a point yet where I think we're at some crisis, but there are a lot of projects happening, that Dave put into place. The start of the Nysboe to refresh. You voted on spending the money to get the technical help on board. The contracts have finally been signed. I signed them 3 times, but I think now this for third time really worked. And we have a kickoff meeting starting next week with some of the business rule development for the Nysboe to refresh program. Dave also had been pushing through on the candidate management campaign finance filing system refresh program that was funded in the budget. And what we had been asking for as the initial planning was that project management, technical support. So Dave, it was one of the last things we did before he left us was make sure we made that support higher using that. That's out of the 1.1 million that was in the budget for the general government cluster. So we made that recommendation. So that kickoff we now have to plan. They wanted to also do it like next week. So it's difficult. We're happy we finally have the resources to do the work. We're happy they're coming on board. The difficulty for us, it would have been easier for us to deal with it, say, in February, because most everybody in the building is going to be very busy with petition filing challenges and also the July 15th periodic reports that are due. So a lot of people are working on a lot of things simultaneous to be ready. There might be a slight delay in that initial kickoff that we would, but it's to be expected just considering that we're starting in the month of July. But I think we're, generally the staff have been doing a great deal of work, juggling a lot of new programs, being responsive to requests from the public, and also getting ready for compliance reviews and public finance and independent expenditure and all the other projects that we're working on. So I think we should give them a lot of credit for that. But I think that covers most of what I...
Yeah, no, it's just a busy time of year. July's a very busy time of year, and we've probably started more projects than we'd like at this time of year, but we have to start when we have the resources and the approval, so we forge ahead.
All right, then we'll have the legal report from Kim Galvin.
Thank you, Commissioner. There's really not much to add to the written report. The co-executive directors pretty much covered it all. With the new reorganization, I've started to get myself acclimated into the compliance arena. So a lot of learning to do there, but basically I've just been, because Paul's not here, just been reviewing the paperwork, answering the regular calls that are busy this time of year. It's a brave new world here.
Well, I would just like to add that we had what I regard as one legal victory in the litigation in Nassau County, where the judge refused to sign an order to show cause that would have altered the canvassing procedures used by the boards of elections in that congressional contest. And I want to thank my colleagues again for the bipartisan support to oppose those kinds of requests that come from the election lawyers. And I hope we can continue on a bipartisan basis to stick to that policy that we will oppose requests by the election lawyers that would alter the statutory scheme for canvassing ballots.
At least they let us know now.
So I want to thank you. Yes.
That's a step in the right direction.
And I mean, I know you're saying opposition, but it was also a recognition to accommodate that there's a need to preserve the record and that we have to work,
Yes.
Yeah. So it was a little bit of both. And
Well, I think we had a very consistent...
The judge actually recognized that, which was crucial, that there are both sides to that. It's like, yeah, we want to keep going forward, but there's also a right for the litigants to preserve the record in the event that they want to pursue their challenge, which they also have a right to do.
Okay, but thank you. So next is election operations. Joe Burns.
Like Bob said, Anna's out handling with everybody else from the unit the petition filing, which is going on right now, and she told me that she sends her regards to everybody. Other than that, you have our report, and that's all we have.
Public information. John?
John's actually
Tom?
Thank you, Commissioner. As it says in the unit report, we have been busy with inquiries about the congressional primary election and also the filing period that's going on right now. In addition to that, I just wanted to recognize the efforts of a lot of the staff here with regard to the election night reporting that was done for the congressional primary. It was different than what we had done last year, where it was just basically yeses and nos for the ballot propositions. It was a little bit more complicated this time with the various races. So I think that the IT department really did a great job. You know, we were here late on the election night, but we had far fewer problems than I think we had last year. Not that we had very many last year, so I was very happy that a lot more of the counties were, involved in the process. And I think that from a public information standpoint, getting the information out to the public worked out very, very well. In addition to that, we've been putting some stuff posting on the website, like the filings that we've been coming in, so we've been handling that and the requests. We did post the amended, or the proposed amendment for the emergency regulation, which will be for later discussion for the public to review. We did put out a press release upon request from Campaign Finance for the upcoming filing deadline of the 15th. And we will be working with the counties who did have congressional primaries with regard to the MOVE Act surveys on the ballots that they received back from the military and overseas voters and whether or not they were counted or not, and if not, why. And then lastly, I did send out an email to our colleagues in New York City and some of the advocacy groups down there about the language translations for the ballot propositions that will be on the ballot this coming fall. This one is more specifically with regard to the vocal talent that's used for recording for the BMD devices. There was some concern last year with some of the accents or the pronunciation of the language that was used, and so I had requested our vendor to provide us with some voice samples for each of the different languages. So I've disseminated that to the people who would be most impacted by it, so they can give us the feedback ahead of time, so that when it comes time for recording the audio, hopefully we'll have nice, clear audio recordings.
All right. Any other questions? And next is campaign finance compliance. William McCann.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just a couple of updates as we usually provide. As of July, we're holding steady at over 14,000 filers. We're still working with our admin office as one of our multiple projects on the phone system. Going forward, to look what our options are to have a new system that will give us the metrics that we used to get under the old system. But that's one of our multiple projects that we have in the pipeline, but I have nothing to report new on that other than that it is in the pipeline. And as you mentioned, we are working on the transition to the compliance unit, which will now go into place, and a lot of logistics that'll go to that. But one of the things specifically that our audit crew is working on is the compliance reviews. We're going to ultimately have more staff and then transitioning current staff to do those compliance reviews as well. So that's there's a little bit of a learning curve there for staff that may have not previously participated in that, but the audit is working on the procedures on how to do those compliance reviews, and we will be kicking that off with the July filing, which is fast upon us. So that'll be a big undertaking. It's also very IT intensive, trying to figure out what items we can have assistance from the computer, if you will, to identify shortcomings in filings, and then there are other things that the computer can't tell you, which someone would have to look at specifically. So we're working on that right now, as well as our pilot project for the controls race and also independent expenditures. So those are a lot of plates in the air that we're juggling, but and it's all pretty much the same staff. So, but the staff's doing a yeoman's job on that, and it's progressing. So I know we'll have some hiccups and things, but we're doing the best we can.
Okay, good. Did you deliver the report for information technology, or?
Well, I think mostly. I mean, we have a number of projects that they are working on. I know in addition to what we had scheduled for them to work on, certainly the initiative for the independent expenditure and public financing had to go to the front because they were statutorily required and they had a June implementation date. So since independent expenditure was first, it went to the front of the line, plus the statute for public financing at least gave us some kind of an out, so to the extent that it could be done electronically. So we are now at the public financing. So independent expenditure work, we met the deadline, everything's fine. There's little tweaks along the way and as far as supporting people filing and people using it to file. The public financing, I think we're not far off of what we had targeted for having the computer programming ready. Staff had met, came up with the specs. The IT people prepared the programming, and then we're going through a series of test protocols. And as we get a little further into the testing, there are some feedback that's going back to the IT people to correct and come back so we can get to the next level of testing. So I think we're comfortable that we are proceeding with the level of testing and the back and forth. Even though Dave's not here, the rest of the staff is busy working with them, and the support of the staff from IT outside of the building. They continue to work on it. So we would have liked it to have been ready by now, but we don't have an applicant today. We don't have an expectation of tomorrow. But even if we did, I think we'd be pretty comfortable that we're pretty close to it. But considering how many things we're juggling at the same time, compliance and all the other programs, that compliance starts on Monday also. So I think we're pretty comfortable that we're at a place. We've designed a system that isn't, if we had a lot more resources and more time, we would have certainly done it differently. But I think we're pretty comfortable that where we're at. We've had outreach with the one candidate that had expressed. I mean, we're monitoring how many, if anybody creates a controller account, that we can at least do outreach. So we have 2 controller accounts. We have outreach. One has said, no, I don't plan on participating, and one says, I hope to, or I plan to. So we continue to do outreach. We have a 3rd controller candidate, so I think we'll just try and do outreach just to make sure that if they have any questions, we know to plug them in with staff that can answer their questions, so that we're not racing till the end of that period. The reminder is the deadline to complete the form that we have posted on the website is August 1st, which is their intent to, the expectation that they want to participate. That doesn't bind them to anything. That doesn't mean they have to be fully meet all the requirements by August 1st, but they at least have to tell us that they want to participate. We can assign staff to them to answer any questions that they have, which is important so that we all can be prepared and help them to the extent we can. But if we get to August 1st and we have no one, we can adjust also. But I expect we'll have someone, at least one.
Right, plus at this juncture, with no primaries anticipated, the earliest that any money can be paid out is September the 10th. So we have the benefit of that as well for project development.
And the one candidate that has indicated that they may participate has been advised of the August 1st deadline for the certification to participate as well. So there's no surprises there.
Right, we're just trying to make sure that everybody, even if we call back, and it's not to nudge them, it's just to make sure that there's no, they weren't expecting something and they were waiting for us to answer them on anything. So other than that, I think we're making progress on all those programs.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is Under old business, to amend the emergency regulation part 6200.10, disclosures of independent expenditures. We have the text, and it has been posted on the board's website. I want to emphasize for the public who may be watching that this particular text is just to correct effectively typos that were adopted last time. The board is still actively reviewing the public comments that have been received, and the regulations are still a work in progress. Is that accurate, Todd? So those in favor of the proposed amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I don't believe we have any new business, so we'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel, the enforcement cases, and maybe we'll discuss pending litigation. Those in favor of going into and our next meeting is August 1st. Those in favor of going into executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it is possible that we will come back and do one piece of business, because I think we have to vote publicly on the personnel after we've had the discussion. But that's all if we come back. So with that, we'll go into executive session, and thank everybody for coming.